Hey there, this is AJ Pickett, and this is my podcasty thing where I take about 3 pages of notes and just talk off script about Dungeons & Dragons. If you have any specific topics that you want me to cover in future episodes of this, you can let me know in the comments down below, or just, any means that you can get a hold of me, just let me know what you want me to talk about. This week, it's more on my topic of dynamism and different aspects of D&D gameplay, cosmology, and really, you'll hear this from a lot of DMs, particularly lately online, giving advice about dynamism or dynamic play and how that works. So I recently listened to a podcast by a very skilled gentleman who was interpreting Sun Tzu's Art of War, more like the science of war. And one thing about Sun Tzu is that he was a strong believer in keeping a lot of stuff on the side. And this is key to running a campaign where you can adapt to whatever your players decide to do. One of the problems with older style campaigns, and one of the things they call railroading. Railroading is, of course, you are on a track. The track only goes one direction, and if you get off that track, you derail the game. In more modern supplements for the game, particularly Frostwind and things like that, you've got more diverse options for how you can run the campaign from different angles and different directions. And the players have got more of a sandboxy, open-ended world in order to run around and accomplish their own personal goals, and as well as accomplishing the overall arcing goal of the story, the mission. So keeping a lot of stuff on the side, keeping encounters, NPCs, groups, activities, opposition, and elements of the character's past is key to this, and adapting to your players' playstyle and their desires and needs even day to day as they play the game at different gaming sessions. Like, they may be more interested in a serious talk with each other's characters game, or they may be interested in exploring more of a particular character's background, or they may just be in the mood to kick some ass and break down doors and steal some loot. They may be in the mood for a more diplomatic solution or problem solving. These things, and also they may be interested in a session which is largely dealing with stuff that their characters do when they're not out adventuring in the so-called downtime. So adapting to your players' moods, minute by minute, hour by hour, session by session, week by week, is key as well. And adapting to your players, dealing with non-adventure players. These are players who are stuck in the mud. They're like, they need an excuse for their character to go out adventuring. And if you don't give them that excuse, then they'll dig their heels in and say, well, why would my character leave town? I need a motive. What's my motivation to go out adventuring? How do I know these people that I'm meeting up with, this adventuring group? So this is where you introduce side NPCs, non-player characters, or you have some sort of spark which gets them out of town. This can be mentors arriving and inspiring them. You can have debts that they need to pay, that they're like a debt collector arrives in town and says, look, we're going to seize all your assets, or we're going to orchestrate you getting thrown in jail. Bounty hunters could show up. Family members needing money or resources or in some sort of dire emergency could show up, or just family members that they don't want to deal with, who they've been trying to escape from, and the clutches of family politics could, seize them. This doesn't have to be blood family. This could be family, people that they've known for a long time who have become family. It could be somebody that they trained with. The other option, of course, is there's a lot of people who don't really like adventurers, and this is where you can actually frame them. So individuals who work against the player characters for no explicable reason to begin with. It becomes clear as it goes along, but they could be rivals, they could use shapeshifters, also, people can use disguise kits. Non-player characters can use disguise kits to disguise themselves as the player characters, go out and commit a crime and get the city watch after the player characters for no apparent reason. And we know that those players are probably not going to react very well to something clearly unjust happening to their characters, so it could escalate quickly to get them out of town and on the adventure. In another aspect, it's a magical game. This doesn't matter whether it's science fiction, science, magic, it's a fantastical game, so that it's always taken to a next level, and it incorporates things like gateways, and you've got to ask yourself, in our day-to-day life, we're quite used to cell phones and instant communication and fast travel and things like that. What is commonplace to the people in a fantasy world? Would they not react to that we would find completely bizarre. So common spells and things like that, healing magic, is remarkable to somebody like us from a mundane world. But, setting people's bones with metal splints and things like that, or, screws and reconstructive surgery and things like that could be quite amazing to them as well for entirely different reasons. But, what are the limits of magical healing and restoration in those sort of worlds? Does anybody have scars? What would it be like if somebody came across some sort of injury that could not be healed with magic? How terrifying would it be? Things to keep in mind. What's the magic trade like? And how does it work? How do wizards' components and things work? Do the wizards have to go out and find all their components themselves? Or is there a strata of society which is geared around serving the magical professions? Or perhaps that's how they limit the wizards' activities, by deliberately making spell components really hard to get. What if it was really, really difficult to get diamond dust, for instance? It was outlawed by anybody other than certified religious orders that can perform the sort of healing and restorative magic that requires diamonds as a component. What if diamonds were not available on gems as a gemstone? It was a religious commodity, and there was some sort of superstition built up around it. Overlooked player character gold is what I call character options that aren't really explored very much in the rules, but make a lot of sense. And one of the player characters that I really like to play is an abjurist. This is if you're in a high magical environment where normal, ordinary people don't have access to wards and seals and detect magic and zones of truth and things like that. They're at the mercy of people with magic. So the abjurist is somebody who's essentially a magic cop who can stop magic in its tracks. They're the person you call in if there's something supernatural about a murder case or something like that. They call in the abjurists. And the abjurist, I think, is one of the more interesting wizard character classes. Also, sages. I sort of tout myself as a sage and have a sage NPC sort of game persona. But sages have a lot of importance, and you don't have to be able to swing a sword very hard. Your intelligence can get you a long way in D&D. Sages also should be a character class that can pick up a little bit of magic, a little bit of divine, a little bit of this and that. It would be like an aspect of the bard, but they're not about the song and dance and things. They're more like writing stuff down in books and passing on their knowledge in the form of treatises and tomes and lessons to others and things like that. A good example of a sage, a martial sage, would be the swordmaster, the person who teaches sword fencing to others, particularly nobles. So that's a sage that's of a martial aspect. Then you've got bounty hunters. These are really interesting characters because they've got a good excuse to be on the move out in the wilderness and in cities and things like that. They've got very good tracking skills that can translate very well into adventuring, but they also fit perfectly into any sort of noble intrigue or situation where they've got a reputation. So they're almost like an anti-folk hero, if you get me. So I quite like the bounty hunter character as well. The wizard's agent, remember where I was talking about the support for the magic trade? Well, the wizard's agent would be the person who goes out and finds components and finds animals for the magical menagerie of a Calamshite noble who wants to have bizarre creatures in their opulent palace. If you've read, there's the latest supplement on the Border Kingdoms. It's got a lot to do with Calamshite nobles setting up little fiefdoms for pleasure in out-of-the-way places. And yeah, the wizard's agent is a really good example of a character that may go out and raid tombs because they're given information by the wizards and they're sent in these dangerous situations, and they're paid well, very well, for just going in there. So it doesn't really matter whether they get the item or not. They give information to that wizard regardless. Tomb robbers, different aspect of that. They're independent agents who go in, investigate and find out where these tombs and things are. They're avid students of history, obviously, and very sneaky. The tomb robbers, the tomb builders and their scouts is another good option as well. So they're sent out by somebody who wants to build a dungeon somewhere, and they're scouting out a location that will probably cut the cost because there's a natural cavern there that could be expanded on, or they're investigating a known dungeon to see whether it's been actually abandoned or not, and that sort of thing. It's a world. There's limited space. But what if you ran your adventure so that the prime material plane was not a world setting per se. It was like a plane, like Bitopia or something, and the actual land space was infinite. So there was no, you can travel infinitely in any direction, and you'll never come back to where you started. And so it wouldn't really make sense to have land wars and things like that. You'd have resource wars over particularly rare things, perhaps. But otherwise, you could have a situation where characters travel for days and days between different settlements because there's just so much space. There's so much land in between them. So there's an excuse for there to be huge, uncharted tracts of wilderness, and have metropolises where people travel to those places because they're famous and they become swollen with huge populations. So you can have different biomes of ecologies and things like that. And really, any sort of situation that you want. You could have wastelands and lush jungles and deserts and things just sort of butted up against each other. You could have archipelago island chains and mires and swamps that stretch for leagues in any direction in that sort of world. It doesn't have to conform to the ordinary weather patterns of a spherical world. It could just be anything you want, really. Planet creatures don't get worlds. They don't really understand them. If you come from Bitopia, you understand that there's the world that you're on. Its land stretches in any direction infinitely, and there's a world right on top of you, like a mirror image of it, but a bit more wild and shady, which is linked by huge mountain spires which join in the middle. And that's just normal for people in Bitopia. And although it's an afterlife, there are people who are born and are naturalized to that place. That is their world. That's their normal world that they live in. So Bitopia is infinitely huge. It's much bigger than any world that player characters from the Prime Material Plane come from. D&D characters don't get conservation. When they don't have a modern mindset, they don't have the privilege of having travelled off the planet and looked back at it from a NASA spacecraft and seen the small gem that we all live on. For them, the borders of the world are far away and far removed from them, and expansion and resources are infinite. So they take and use whatever they can. If they come across a species which has got some sort of monetary value or use, they will hunt it to extinction. This is one thing, that's why druids are so unusual. They're the only ones who have a sort of a modern conservative mindset for this is an environment, this is a system, we need to preserve this, whereas the fighter's just like, why don't we kill all the turtle people and stake all their shells? It's like, well, there's only so many of them, so there'll be more somewhere else. This is strange and bizarre, and something that you probably need to point out to the modern people, that characters just don't get conservation. They don't understand it. Everything is infinite. The prime material is a plane. It's not a world. It goes on forever. And it's important to think about how people get around. And I've got more to talk about that in a minute, and how it relates to story. Magical kingdoms is an interesting thing too. They're their own individual biome. It's a fairy tale fortified place. It could have some sort of curse or mythal or something like that which is settled over the place, or it could just be built on a magical area that's always been magical for no particular reason. Maybe some fairy kingdom existed there in the long lost way back whens. Could be built on some sort of Saruk lair that's channeling a life energy from some other plane of existence. It could be a place where there's a font of never-ending water which has been filling a basin up with fresh drinking water for eons. Who knows? This is a magical place, and crossovers between different planes of existence can cause unusual and strange effects. And the kingdom may capitalize that on, maybe water elementals are as common as electricity to them. The extent of law really is the extent of civilization. So if it's a matter of having huge swaths of space between different places, the law is people. It can't control and patrol everywhere. Mages can't see everywhere at once. Gods can certainly see a lot and inform their servants in a certain aspect. So religious orders quite often team up with law and order, but law and order only goes as far as it can be enforced. And once it's beyond the ability of anybody to enforce it, you're in a lawless territory where anything goes. When in Rome is another topic as well. So when you go from one place to another, point out the differences to the player characters. They will be very keenly aware of the fact that their character is no longer in Kansas and that things are bizarre around them. They will probably if they've been travelling extensively, they'll get to know who to ask and where to find out what the local bylaws and things are on, like, can you carry weapons? Can you cast spells in public here? That sort of thing. Remember that non-humans have their own society. They don't just exist blending in with humans and human societies. They also have townships and settlements and things of their own, and activities of their own. They have wars of their own. Dwarves fight other dwarves occasionally. Elves fight other elves occasionally. Elves and dwarves fight each other occasionally. Doesn't have anything to do with humans. Humans sort of get involved in these things at their risk. But there's also non-humans who are, like the non-civilized races who have, in these lawless zones beyond the extent of the ability of civilized races to exert their force. They reign and have their own communities and civilizations and rules and bylaws and conflicts of their own. So you can pass through an area which is known to be, well, the orcs and the goblins are at war here. Hobgoblins are actually fighting orcs here. They're not getting paid to do it, they're just taking over some orcish territory for whatever reason. And if humans get in the way, they could be co-opted by either side or seen as spies who are working for the other side. There's also non-humanoids. Centaurs, for instance, make a really great encounter for a nomadic tribe of people who have their own mores and customs. Wemmicks, lupins and things. Well, maybe not lupins because they're humanoid as well, but like wemmicks and centaurs, these quadrupeds, dragons and dragonkin who are not like dragonborn, for instance, so drakes and things who have intelligence, individual monsters who are unusually intelligent, who have staked out their own little communities. They're interesting side counters as well, and really highlight the fact that this world is occupied by more than just humanoid civilizations that are spaced out with wilderness and ruins in between. Worlds within worlds in a magical setting is also incredibly important. People ask me about Deeper Mascar, for instance, and Deeper Mascar is almost a world in and of itself. It's like a wormhole of demi-planes, which goes on and on and on, in my view. And the possibility that a small space need not be a small space. It may just be a doorway. For instance, the Aesir have a king who travels around in an iron chariot which is pulled by nightmares, and nobody is allowed inside this iron chariot apart from the chosen, created offspring of this Aesir lord. He's the size of a fire giant. It's quite enormous. But I suspect that this is actually a demi-plane which is being carried around inside a cart, a carriage. And what a perfect way to get around if you've got a castle-sized domain inside a mobile building or a ship or something like that, which is traveling around. I think that's fantastic. Like Baba Yaga's hut, for instance, it's a hut on top of giant chicken legs, but if you open that door, you could be walking into a place which is 20 miles in any direction. Time travel and avoiding paradox is particularly easy in Dungeons and Dragons in most settings. What I do is I just double it up. So if you go to a different time period, what you're actually doing is going to a parallel plane of existence. So it's a parallel Earth or world that looks exactly like everything that you knew, except in that universe the Big Bang happened a little bit earlier or later or whatever. So everything is shifted back or forward a little bit in time. It's not exactly the same, like maybe birds have different coloured beaks or something like that. Some little difference, like the pastries will be different, but it's close enough. There's an infinite amount of parallel realities, you see, and all you need to do is find the one which is closest matched, but just a little bit skew-if in temporal aspect. That means that you can't go backward and kill your own grandparents and wipe yourself out from existence, because in that other world there is a doppelganger of you. It's a different version of you from that world. So this is the Rick and Morty paradox, where they ruin their own universe. Rick opens up a dimensional portal, goes through, kills the other version of Rick and Morty on that other side, and take their place. And now Summer and the father and mother and stuff are all aliens who look exactly like your parents or sister or whatever. And you have that strange reality shift, that dystopian feeling. I don't know what it's called. Disconnected, So how do you actually erase something? How do you go back in time and stop something? Well, in fantasy games, particularly if you go to the Nine Hells, Mephistopheles has developed a form of fire, and this is, I think, from the Wheel of Time series as well, wizard fire, with the ability to burn something so fiercely that, and with the magical power channeled into it, that it actually erases it from existence. So it burns every instance of it back in time as well. So an individual is actually wiped from memory, which is possible, I suppose. You could also wish somebody to have never existed. And the reason why I say avoid time travel is because the actual logic of time travel. If you want to go back in time, you have to change everything in the universe and move it so that it was back in the position it was back when you want to go back there. And not only that, but everything is in motion in a universe. Like planets are traveling around stars, and even the spheres, if you're playing the spelljammer aspect of things, are floating around in the phlogiston, which is a flow which is constantly moving. So if you want to go back in time, you also have to teleport enormous distances through space with pinpoint accuracy just to wind up 10 minutes from where you were back in the past. You will have instantly teleported thousands and thousands of miles. I think the Earth is moving like millions of miles per hour, so we need to bear that in mind. Time travel's also space travel, and it's really seriously gnarly space travel. Side note on companion beasts and things, NPCs can also have companion beasts as well, and it's an interesting introduction to the idea of what if they are using awakened furniture and things like that? What if that's one of the commonplace bits of spell magic? What if pet dolls and things, and it's more common for somebody to have a little golem than a dog, for instance, or horses and carriages and stuff are actually animated using magic and things. And what if there's domesticated versions of monsters? This is something that amuses me greatly. What if there's actually a domesticated sturge? Like, what purposes could you put if they've got plenty of time and effort and they've got a reason to domesticate these monsters, what other uses could they have? Gelatinous cubes and otyugs and things like that make sense because they're perfect garbage disposals. But what else could oozes and things do? You know? High fantasy is not highly complicated, really. And particularly when you're talking about ship travel, what I do is I sort of say, look, there's a lot of stuff in ship travel and going from A to B that really you can paint yourself into a corner, and you can trip yourself up as a DM by making it too likely that things are going to go wrong and people are going to get stranded in the middle of nowhere. Shipwrecking on a spelljammer ship can result in the death of the entire party, and there's no coming back from that, and it sucks. So what is the purpose of a ship? It's a platform for a journey. It's also a resource station. It's a base that you can come back to. It's a place that you can take refuge in. And it's a means of gathering information about the environment around you by either having high ground or having some sort of shipboard sensors or something like that. And it's a way of protecting yourself from people who want to stop you from what you're doing. So if you're traveling through space on a spelljamming ship, it should be really, really hard to catch up with, track, or find people who are in transit. So it's really things that you encounter along the way that are going to slow you down, not necessarily stop you, and you should have plenty of opportunity to veer around such things if it's inconvenient. Like if the players really don't want to encounter anything while they're spelljamming from A to B, then they can avoid it, generally. Purposes of journeys is really resources and time and experience and explaining new places. It's not to bore your players to death, and wildernesses should be just as interesting as dungeons and townships and things, but there's time and places to have encounters every day. Like if you're rolling dice to determine whether your characters have an encounter on a particular journey and you haven't got anything planned out already that you're all set to drop into that journey right away, I would say avoid it. Purposes of, like, if they stop in the middle of their journey and they're hampered by something which they just can't get around, or it's really stopped them in their tracks, you've effectively stopped the story. You've painted yourself into a corner, and it's your own fault. Like, you can't rely on the players to roll better to get the story going again when you're the one who put the obstacles in the way that made that story stop. So it's perfectly fine to skip ahead in the journey. Common narrative traps and how to get out of them is like, I could write a book on this. Not having any leads for the adventure is one. Like, the characters are wandering around in town wondering what to do next, and you as the dungeon master haven't given them a clue, not so much as a breadcrumb, and you're wondering why the players are getting bored, frustrated, and coming up with strange ideas and things. It's because they haven't got a lead. You haven't given them a lead. So this is where you introduce NPCs and something like that, something that will clue them into where to go, a signpost. This is why I use fortune tellers and things like that, or events that catch the character's attention, which draw them into it, because they will gravitate towards any sort of drama or disaster which is going on to investigate, because there's a narrative, there's a group understanding that it's okay to introduce these things to get the story going. What if they've killed the wrong NPC in the game? You've put an NPC in there in the situation that is effectively, if the NPC gets killed, the story stops in its tracks. Like, that sage is the one who knows the code to get through the door, but they haven't given it to the players yet. Or that NPC is the person who has been kidnapped, and everything hinges on the good nature of the king to allow them into the Underkingdom to solve the thing, which is, and you've stopped them in their tracks because that NPC has died, or you've allowed that NPC to be killed by one of the player characters because they have the option to do that. Well, again, that's your fault. There's got to be some sort of a backup plan. That's what I'm saying. Disruptive play from player characters is usually when they're bored and or they're not happy with their character and they're getting truculent about how they want to deal with it. They don't want to just retire that character. They want that character to die in game. And you need to really stop them in their tracks there as a player at the table and say, look, you can't decide to suicide your character in game without taking away the agency of all the other players around the game whose characters, because they're playing their characters right, would do everything in their power to save your character. Essentially, that's a dick move. You don't do that because you're steamrolling the game in a direction that you are dictating to everyone else. And we all know this is a cooperative game, and if you want to play that way, go play Choose Your Own Adventure books by yourself. Go play a game of Tunnels and Trolls. Hero Quest. So in those situations, you say, look, okay, let's come up with a group reason for why this happens, and we'll orchestrate it and play out the story. It's okay for them to say, look, that's how I want my character to die, or how I want a new character to come in. One option is you run the two characters parallel until they get bored with their old character, and the old character just sort of moves on, and they gravitate more towards their new character. Getting them to roll up their new character while they're playing out the end of the scenario of the last one is really good as well, because people always get really enthusiastic about playing the character that they've just rolled up. So yeah, disruptive play can be difficult, and loss of a key character. Like, if their player character is the one that is really key to the game carrying on, then you've done something wrong there as well. It's okay to introduce an NPC who's almost like, it's Cousin Tony who shows up, it's my twin brother or whatever. Soap opera cliches are cliches because they work. You can, in Dungeons & Dragons and other fantasy games, go to the afterlife. We quite often think about the Seven Heavens and Nine Hells and Hades and things like that as planes of existence, exotic locations. They're the afterlife. This is where people go when they die. So you're literally going to the place where ghosts go. It's okay to be marveled by this and say, wow, okay, you're actually traveling to the afterlife. This is a big thing in like Roman and Greek mythology and things, and Dragon Ball Z. At one point Goku gets a halo, and that's about other than that, there's not much limitations on it. But how do you get there? How do you go to and from? Is it traveling through portals to the Outlands and arriving in person, physical, as a mortal being from the prime material plane to these outer planes of existence? What's that like? How weird is it to be in the place of departed souls when you're actually still alive and have some connection to the prime material plane? Have you arrived there via astral travel? And are you walking around in an astral body? And what happens when you return? Is your body left behind in the prime material plane when that happens? Or does it like turn into an energy thing? Does it phase out of existence? I don't know. Reverse summoning is also an option as well. What if beings from outer planes of existence can summon prime material beings if they know what their name is? What if the rules for summoning are the same in the opposite direction? So you could be a player character who's getting a reputation for a certain thing, and then all of a sudden they're summoned to the afterlife. They're summoned to the realm of the dead. So, how and why do summoning circles work, for instance? Like, what's the logic behind that? What are the symbols and things that the arcanist is writing on these circles? What do they actually mean? Why are devils and things stopped in their tracks by a summoning circle, and wards and things? What do the wards actually have over them that stops them from going through? Is it just magical force? Is it like some incantation of the moment, or is it some legacy of some contract or something that happened a long time ago? Is it actually the will of a powerful deity or something that you've written down? A reminder of a clause in a contract? You know, what is it that could go wrong in those symbols and wards and things? And, you know, perhaps the devil actually lets slip a little information about why that particular summoning circle is so cleverly constructed by the mortal, or why the mortal doesn't really understand the significance of what they've just written there, or how they've gotten it wrong. So that's very interesting. Give your game time to grow. So downtime is really important for that, and give the characters more to spend their money on than just items and resources for their adventuring. So give them dependents, give them friends and family, give them business interests, investments, give them political aspirations, give them donations to the fight, the cause, the revolution, the opposition to the baleful political party, cargo on ships, a new shipping line, all these different aspects. Like if they've invested in a shipping company, for instance, they may get free passage to go where they want on a fishing vessel, or a charter vessel, or a transport vessel that they own part shares in. So this is definitely an option. They may have some sort of innovation, or get involved in creation of new technologies to actually change the world through different means. Devout servants of Gond, for instance, or particularly clever arcanists or alchemists could come up with stuff. Maybe you invent penicillin, or, you know, other means of healing people without the reliance on the church, and that could cause all sorts of drama in itself. So things to bear in mind. Another thing you can do is increase rest times dramatically to increase the realism in the game. So a long rest is actually several days, or some downtime would be several weeks or even months in between adventures. And this really makes a lot of sense, because if I was going out and fighting goblins and things with the chance of getting speared with a poop tube that gives me a serious injury, it's going to take not only a lot of physical healing to get over that, but also post-traumatic stress, man, from getting some serious injuries. Even if you are healed by magic, you're going to remember very well what it was like to have your stomach punctured by something. And it's going to take a time to mentally get over that and want to actually, well, get to the point where you've forgotten how horrible it was, so that you actually go out and do it again. So that's something to bear in mind. People quite often level up their characters extremely quickly when you think about it, and it doesn't really gel very well with the non-player characters that you see in the world around your character. So a 9th level, long-toothed blacksmith who used to be an adventurer, and you say, well, when did you do your adventuring? Oh, this series of goblin wars or something like several years ago, when all of a sudden these characters have gone out 2 weeks ago, come back in their 10th level. That's going to raise some eyebrows. Things to bear in mind. If you like these podcasty things, let me know. And if you have any questions for me to cover in future podcasty things, or topics that I can talk around and go flipping from place to place as I tend to do in these, let me know. If you have any other just general aspects of the game that you want inspiration on, like just a podcasty thing that you can listen to give you different aspects of it that you may not have thought of or put two and two together, that's really what I'm here for. So let me know, and thanks for listening.